Oh, we have someone else joining us. Welcome to it. We've just hit the record button, but we'll trim it. Welcome to the talk. And if you would like to hide your video or mute yourself at any time, you can go ahead. Is it Layla?
Yes,
Hi, Layla. Nice to meet you.
thank
Um,
you.
did you have any questions about how to mute or hide your screen if you wanted to?
Um, Probably. Okay, hold on.
Okay. Yep.
Um, I'll just leave it. Is
Yeah,
that
you can
okay?
just leave it. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So we do record these, and we generally share them on YouTube for people, but the names don't show up.
Okay.
Okay. And the most of the time we're not showing, mostly it's our speaker that will be showing. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome, Layla. Okay.
Thank you.
Uh, Jenna, I will leave it to you. Oh, we got more people coming in. Here comes Mary. Everyone's coming in here. Good thing we gave it a few minutes. Welcome, Mary. Yep, you can keep if you wanted to keep your video and your microphone muted, go for it. And then feel free to unmute or appear whenever you like. All right. And then just let me know when you want the slides advanced, Jenna. And
Sure.
sure.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Better Breathers Club of BC. We are so very happy to have you join us today. We are very thankful to the BC Lung Foundation who supports this program, which is a monthly support group for those living with chronic lung conditions, as well as family, friends, and caregivers. And so we are here to learn and connect with each other. We'd like to acknowledge the lands on which we are gathering on today as the unceded ancestral and traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. For Tina and I, who are joining in from Vancouver, that's the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. So if you'd like, we invite you to let us know in the chat the lands on which you're on attending our session today.
Same.
This is a safe space in our Better Breathers Club of BC, so we invite you all to share your thoughts, values, opinions freely, to be able to ask your questions without fear of judgment. So we want to thank you in advance for creating this safe space for everyone. The information that's shared here today is for educational purposes and does not substitute professional medical advice that you may have received from your personal healthcare providers. If after today's session you're looking for more, we invite you to connect with the registered respiratory therapists and certified respiratory educators in the Poplar Clinic. So in this clinic, you can access one-to-one appointments with respiratory experts. You could do so virtually from the comfort of your own home. And as well, we'd like to highlight our Harmonicas for Health and Happiness program, graciously funded through the BC Lung Foundation. This is a 5-week program that takes place on Mondays at 1 o'clock. We focus on respiratory muscle strengthening through learning to play the harmonica. And it's a very fun session. Our session in January is full, but we are recruiting for our March session. So do contact us or visit our website to book your welcome intake session. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sura Alwarid, who is a registered pharmacist joining us today. She comes from the Vancouver area and is known for her clinical pharmacy work in community health centers such as the REACH Clinic and with lung health initiatives, like by joining us here today at the Better Breathers Club of BC. So welcome, Shura. We're so happy to have you with us. and you are going to break down vaccines for us today. And I think we have a really interesting perspective on this vaccine talk. So we're going to learn about how they're made. So take it away, Shura.
Thanks, Jenna and Tina, for inviting me and for everyone to have me speak to you. So just going to talk a little bit about vaccines. And I know that I might be preaching to the choir. Everybody with obviously with lung diseases or with compromised immune system knows the importance of, getting vaccinated and preventing diseases. And, we all hear the same kind of guidance. And when Tina and Jenna asked me to do this talk, I thought, you know what? They've probably heard this before. Let's tell them what's in their vaccine in case they're wondering, in case somebody's thinking something in the vaccine is going to hurt me. How are they made? Like what's happening in my body? So that's sort of how I structured this. And hopefully that will, help you guys think about vaccines in that way. And feel free to unmute if you want to ask a question. I'm happy to answer as I go along. So what are they? What are vaccines and why do we need them? So according to the World Health Organization, a vaccination is a simple, safe, and effective way of protecting you against harmful diseases before you come in contact with them. It uses your body's natural defenses to build resistance to specific infections and make your immune system stronger. So we're going to sort of look and see how we do that. So next slide, please. And then the one after. Yes, sorry, I forgot to say next slide. So what's our immune system? Basically, it's a dynamic system in your body. So there are actually organs, there are cells, and it's always learning, it's always changing. And they work together to prevent you from getting infected with a harmful pathogen or getting rid of it if you have been infected. Next slide, please. Your immunity is divided into two kinds. You've got your innate immunity. So it's sort of inherent to you. It's natural. It's not specific to any virus. It's not specific to any bacteria. It's quick acting and it alerts your other immune system, the other side, the adaptive side, to start working. So what do we mean when we say innate? So you're born with it. Throughout evolution, our body cells have learned that some bacteria have specific things on their surface to look out for. So it actually, I feel like it doesn't do it justice to say that like it's not specific, it's not that cool. It actually really is, because I went on a deep dive into all of this stuff, and they really do. There are certain sequences on top of bacteria that the body looks at and goes, hey, this is foreign to me. I don't recognize this. And then, so one question that came to my mind, well, then why do we need vaccines if our system can do that? And the answer might be that some bacteria try to trick those cells and cover those parts that are inherently maybe recognized. And therefore, we need vaccines or antibiotics when we do get infected. So if you get a cut, for example, your body kind of alerts and your innate immunity hits. So you get your blood vessels expand, and all those cells that help to protect you from that foreign invader come in. So next slide, please. Then you've got your adaptive immunity. So it's learned, it's very specific. It's got cells that recognize each type of foreign pathogen, and it takes a while to kick in. So if I could see the next slide, please. So in your body, you've got your skin as a protector. That's part of your innate immunity. You've got mucus. That's part of your innate immunity. And then you've got certain cells that go in. For example, when you get a cut, the inflammation expands the blood vessels. Everything goes, all those cells go to try to protect against this pathogen. They eat it up in case if it's like a bacteria or a virus. Then those cells go and they present it to your adaptive immunity. They show it to those cells and say, hey, we don't really recognize this thing, or maybe we do, but can you just take a look and see? So then your adaptive immunity goes, yes, that is foreign to us. And we are going to make specific antibodies towards it to kill it. for the next time we see it. So then I guess our bodies have it covered, unless, again, the bacteria and the viruses replicate so fast and they change so fast, their surfaces, that we haven't had time to see them, or if we did see them, they may actually hurt us, or our immune is not active enough. And in that case, we would need to have something to protect us against that invasion from causing us a disease. If I could get the next slide, please. Slow me down if I'm going too fast. So this is probably the earliest form of vaccines that we know of. I don't know if you had kids, but my kids always picked their noses and ate it. And there was actually, I used to love to share this. There was a study showing that some kids who picked their noses and ate it developed less colds over time. And I wanted to tell you guys about that. But in my rabbit hole that I went down on for these, I actually saw a newer study that is a little bit more reputable, showing that people who did pick their nose more often ended up getting more infected with colds and flus. And for people who are, especially with COVID-19, and people who are more susceptible to infections or have a less active immune system or less functional, it's probably not a good idea to pick your nose and eat it. So always wash your hands and don't pick your nose. It's not the best way to do it. Especially since getting it out of your nose may not actually deactivate it enough for your system. And then you might actually end up getting infected. But in China and India, the earliest forms of vaccinations, where they would take things like from pockmarks or from the plague, and they would grind it and then present it onto the person's skin, that was a form of vaccination. And then I believe maybe at the turn of the century, someone took pox, I think it was smallpox, and then deactivated it and injected it into a child and found that that was protective, and it was a form of vaccination. I think it was cowpox, and that's why the word vacca, which means cow in Latin. So that's where that word has come from. So if we could get the next slide, please. So that's sort of, you've got your vaccinations. So what's in our vaccines? So my mom and sisters, if you ask them, this is what's happening in a vaccine lab. There's secret deals, and you don't know what's getting put into it. I don't want it. I don't want it in my system. What if something happens to me? So now I'm going to open it up to you guys and ask if anyone has heard of any, I want to say, conspiracy theories about vaccines, especially the COVID-19 vaccine. Please share that with me. Anyone?
Can of worms here, Sura.
Let's open it. I went down the rabbit hole so you guys don't have to. Who wants to share COVID-19 conspiracy theory?
I think in general, it just seems that there's I can't think of anything kind of specific, but definitely it just seems that there's been this like crazy backlash against it, and I guess the one thing that I've heard, and I don't know if it's conspiracy so much, but it's just people saying, well, they developed it too quickly, so it can't be safe.
Okay.
And there's so many times where they said, no, this technology has been in the works for decades. Yeah. So.
Okay, so that is one thing I went down that rabbit hole on. But has anyone ever heard of the microchip theory?
No, not yet.
I used to work in a pharmacy where we did a lot of natural health products, and a lot of people were saying, well, there's a chip in the vaccine, and so I don't want it because the government is tracking us. And it wasn't just one crazy person, and I don't want to call her crazy, because I will tell you why that theory came out. I went down the rabbit hole, you guys. Don't do it. I mean, if you want to, you can. So this microchip theory is one that actually prevented a lot of people from getting the COVID-19 vaccine. And what it was the CEO of the Pfizer company was in a conference that I think it was 2017 or 2018. and told the attendees that they were investing in a Japanese company that has a pill that has a sensor and a chip to track whether the patient has taken their antipsychotic, the oral antipsychotic, and that the doctor would be able to trace it. So I thought, wow, okay, let me look into this. Like, there's no way. How can they put a sensor and a chip in a tablet? I mean, this is prime computer engineering. Who can make a chip that small? That's amazing. Why isn't this more famous? So I look up the manufacturer or the people developing this in Japan. And it turns out on their page, they do say they have a sensor in their tablet and that the sensor is the size of a grain of sand. So I go down the rabbit hole and I look up what gauge needles can pass a grain of sand, and most of them do. So I was like, there's no way. And I'm looking up the ingredients. I don't see anything that would say sensor or chip. So I look up their studies. It turns out that this sensor, the so-called sensor, is a copper molecule, which can be found in your multivitamins. It's like 2 minerals. And you wear a sensor here around your tummy that measures your baseline electrical signals, which you have in your body naturally. And when you swallow this tablet, the 2 minerals react with your stomach acid and release a little bit of an electrical pulse, because when things react, they do release some electricity, some heat. The sensor picks that up, sends the message to your wrist watch device, and sends it to your iPhone, which then the doctor can take a look at. So
Wow.
the language
Unreal.
of this, and the manufacturers themselves put their foot in their mouth in such a way that made people take something that, yes, it's, it can be traceable. You can trace, whether people took their antipsychotics or not, and made it seem like they were able to make a nanochip that small. So that's the first rabbit hole. And then the second rabbit hole about quick development. So I think with the, I don't know if people have heard of the SARS virus back in the early 2000s.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that time, that's when people really started to look at those viruses and look at their protein structures. And those viruses actually are very similar to the SARS-CoV virus. In fact, they're from the same family. So that recognition of where to look on the surface of this virus was already there. And then the mRNA technology was already there. So that part was probably about 25 years worth of research and development. So that much work was done. And this is why it has made it come so much faster to fruition. I'll address side effects later on, but for now, this is my conspiracy rabbit hole that I went down on, because I love conspiracy theories. I love them, and I love to see where they came from and whether they're true or not, because, I mean, why not? It's fun. So let's take a look at the next slide, please. So that's okay. So how do we get the vaccine to the public? So we look at a certain pathogen, like, okay, this is a problem. A lot of people are getting infected with this certain virus or bacteria. For example, like the flu or the SARS-CoV, like the COVID-19. And then through research, we want to know sort of which parts on the surface of this virus or bacteria don't change very quickly and are always present, and are like sort of integral to the structure of that virus or of that bacterium. And then we find the best way to take that piece and complex it with something that helps get it to the body cells that recognize foreign agents so that they can develop the antibodies to it. So we put it into your body goes, hey, this is not something we recognize. And because it's something that isn't going to change very quickly, it may be that we only do that vaccine once a year. If it changes never, or like we haven't seen it change yet, then you may need one dose, 2 doses, and then, only a booster at some point. And then when we formulate it, we look at like, what are we going to put it in so that piece of the protein, or that piece of the virus or bacteria or fungus can stay alive and functional until we inject it into the cell. We put other things. One thing is called an adjuvant, and then another thing called a preservative. Adjuvants are basically things that help your body get a bigger reaction to the vaccine. And then the preservative is what we put in to keep it shelf stable until we use it. But before any of that happens, what we do is we do some safety testing. So we first formulate what we want to put in a vaccine. They actually make it, and then they test it on animals to see, hey, is this working? Is this producing the right set of antibodies, which are like the fighters to that infection? And then they do a small group of patients to test safety. If that goes well, then they do a bigger group of patients to test whether we're going to get the right response. And then they do a third one. Then they go to the regulators and they say, hey, this is what we have. We've done all these datas. And then they get the okay. And then they still do post-marketing surveillance. So any side effects or anything like that. In fact, we're getting a new system here in BC to report all those side effects anonymously. So it will actually enhance reporting that way. So that's kind of a quick overview of how a vaccine arrives to you. If I could get the next slide, please. So these are the different types of vaccines. So we've got an inactivated vaccine, which means you take the pathogen and you make it so it cannot replicate. You inactivate it, but your body can still recognize it as foreign, and we keep the spots in there that are important for us, for our body to recognize as foreign. Live attenuated is a little bit more like we disconnect some parts of it, but and so those kinds of vaccines are a little bit more effective because they mimic a little bit more the original virus or bacteria. And then we've got messenger RNA virus vaccines, which are like the COVID-19 vaccine. Subunit, I'm not going to bore you. Toxoid vaccines, which we take a little bit of the toxin, we introduce it to the body, and then the body goes, hey, we don't want this. And we've got vaccines that we can put into a part of a virus, and then it goes into a cell, and then the cell goes, okay, thank you for this genetic material. We're going to make the proteins, and then our body will recognize the antigens to it. This is probably not my best slide, so let's go to the next one. So here's a picture of our current fluad, which is the flu vaccine. So we can go through it and see what have we put in there. So it's a 0.5 ml, and it's the syringe that's already pre-filled. So it's got the 3 strains that you see there of our virus. And then we have something called the adjuvant. So what the adjuvant does is that it wakes up your innate immunity. So it's almost like getting that cut. So it tells the body, hey, there's some inflammation. Send all your cells to this area. It sends the cells to that area, and then those cells take it to your adaptive immunity to present that foreign material. So adjuvants are really important because they increase your reaction to the vaccine. And this is probably the most interesting thing to me because I didn't even, like, you study it in school, you don't realize what it actually does, but just the fact that it almost like helps present the foreign agent better to your adaptive immunity to tell your specialized cells, hey, look at this, we've got somebody. Make a memory to make sure that when you see this again, you attack it and destroy it. And then we've got, so that's in your adjuvant. In there are some things that help to stabilize it and keep the water emulsion sort of well suspended. And then after that, it's got some enhancers, stabilizers. The disodium phosphate is a buffer. It also helps with the balance of the pH. And then we've got some preservatives as well. So do you guys have any questions about any of those?
So, Sarah, yeah, can you talk to us about the adjuvant? So this is what we kind of see in the non-standard kind of flu vaccine when you're, um, it's kind of seems to be recommended for a little bit older. So what happens as you age to your immune system that would make having a higher an adjuvant type vaccine more beneficial to you?
Yeah. So as we age, our immune system becomes less active. So this is why we sometimes get a higher dose and we get an adjuvant because we need that extra little help to get that particular unit of the virus to our system to show it to them. It's almost like having an alarm, like an extra alarm. Like if you put on one alarm, but I'm going to put on two just to make sure I wake up. Or like a tattleteller in class. Somebody to say, hey, this is what's happening. You gotta react.
It's like the snooze button. Definitely as you get older, you need a snooze button.
Yeah. So it's a really important component of the vaccine to make sure that your vaccine, that you actually develop the right or the right amount of reaction to your vaccine so that you're not just going, okay, well, I took it, but my immune system is doing nothing about it. I might get 50% efficacy or like 50% benefit as opposed to, a higher benefit from that same vaccine. So putting an adjuvant in there is a huge advantage. Does anyone want to know about the conspiracy theories of the formaldehyde and thiomersal about the mercury?
I like conspiracy theories too. So yeah.
Yes. So, as you might have heard about, I think I forget which star it was, saying that her kid developed autism because of the 2-year-old vaccination. And I believe she blamed it on the thiomersal, which has like a component that has a mercury in it. So before going into this deep dive, I thought, okay, well, usually autism is diagnosed around that age, around 2, when you're not meeting milestones. So, I'm not even gonna think about that. And I gave my children the vaccine eyes closed. But then I thought, let's look into this. So the thiomersal actually is an important preservative in vaccines. But it is an organic form of the mercury. It's ethyl mercury, not methyl mercury. So then your body actually knows how to break it down and excrete it. So it's not the methyl mercury which accumulates. But even then, like even if it wasn't able to eliminate it, it's the equivalent of having a can of tuna, like a small can of tuna.
Mhm.
So in this case, I would say it's negligible. So if anybody tells you there's mercury, and it is now recommended, not because it does cause autism, but because out of caution and to not scare people into getting vaccines, they have, I think the US FDA has asked not to use this specific preservative in children under 6, I believe. But we do have another preservative. So I don't think that will be an issue. And then we've got the formaldehyde thing. So formaldehyde, basically what it does is that it activates the viruses, the bacteria, or the toxins that we are trying to use. So because we are using some parts of it, but in the production, we don't want to actually grow 10,000 viruses. We want just certain parts of it. So it is used to kill or inactivate. And then during the process of production, it is actually purified out. So whatever amount is in there, it's very negligible. It's almost nothing. And you know that formaldehyde can be excreted by the body, but it is also present in a lot of things. And then we have the aluminum, which is part of some adjuvants. So that's the thing that tells your body to, hey, look at this. We've brought you something, cause some inflammation so that you can make antibodies. The aluminum is also in very minute or minuscule amounts that are almost negligible. It is a safe amount, and it is excreted by your kidneys. So the only time I would worry about it is if you have kidney dysfunction and you're taking it at a high dose. Where else is alum or aluminum used? Baking powder, baked goods. You've got some aluminum in your antiperspirant. So in comparison, this is a small amount. I'm not saying it's good to have it, but if you need it, you have a risk versus benefit at a minute amount, I would say I'm okay with it. So, but again, go down rabbit holes and search for yourself. I think that's a better thing to do.
Nice.
So, and then people say, who cares? It's just a vaccine, the flu vaccines. If I could get the next slide, please. So now that we know a little bit about how vaccines are made, I didn't want to go into too much of a deep dive so as not to confuse the masses. So sorry if you still have questions. Like my mom's like, I don't think I'm going to get it. I don't think it's very effective. Your sister said it's not good and it causes reactions. And, who cares? Like, what are they? They just put some random things in there. So I went down that rabbit hole and looked at the reporting systems of how they decide what to include, which strains of viruses to put into, say, the flu vaccine or in anything else. So when you go to a lab, like you're sick and you're not sure actually what you're sick with, and the doctor swabs you and sends it to the lab. So the lab can give you a generalized idea. Okay, you have the influenza A, but then they're still testing after the fact. And then they have a reporting system that reports to the health authorities, which also share that information with the provincial and federal authorities in Health Canada and in the states accordingly. And then they actually share all of that with the World Health Organization. And those bodies actually get together and they decide on different hemispheres of the world where those strains are most prevalent. And then they allow the manufacturers to produce those vaccines with those specific strains. So yes, drug companies want to make money, and yes, they will make money off of a lot of things, but it's not before all those bodies decide on what is actually going to be in that vaccine. So that's sort of how we come to agree on what's in there, which strains are in there, and what we're going to target. If I could get the next slide, please. So I think this is just kind of an example of a live attenuated vaccine and what goes into it, how we select it. Once we select it, we do large scale culturing. So the culturing happens sometimes in egg cells, which is why some people who have true egg protein allergies sometimes have to take caution. They are purified out at the end, but there may be still some remnants. They might also put an antibiotic in there, and that also helps to make sure that from the egg cells you don't have bacterial growth in your in your vaccine at the end, but that is also purified, so you may have some remnants still at the end. So that's the live attenuated vaccine example. You can take a look at it maybe at a different time because I don't want to drone on and bore you all. And then this is an idea of an inactivated vaccine. So you basically kill it in the production. You want to grow certain parts. And then examples are like the flu vaccine, the rabies vaccine. And then I think I don't want to draw on. So again, another in the next slide, it just tells you what diluents are, and the slide after that tells you types of adjuvants. I don't want to drone on. Sorry. I feel like I've droned on. And you've got stabilizers as well in the next slide. Now I've come to I want to keep it short because I want to answer any questions. So any questions?
Maybe I'll stop the screen share for just a second. There we go. And we can have some discussion. Oh my gosh, that's a lot to think about, Sarah.
Sorry, you guys,
That's great.
it was so fun, but so hard to do this because I wanted to tell you about everything.
Yeah. And all the rabbit holes. Like, I just love
I
that
went
because
down
it's
so many rabbit holes. It was actually really
right. That's cool. Well, as soon as you learn something, then you have a million questions and you can go deeper
Yes.
and deeper. Yeah. We have the same problem. Yeah, there's a lot of food for thought. And there's a lot to vaccines, especially, as you bring up all these conspiracy theories and
Yeah.
whatnot. The climate right now, the
Mhm.
people's views on vaccines are a lot about, sort of personal beliefs and where people
Yeah.
get different information. So yeah, let's open the floor to discussion about any and all of that, even if it's just, technical questions about the vaccine or any specific vaccine even, because there's a lot of them out there that we
Yes.
recommend too. Yeah.
I have a question. I'm one of the people who's sold on vaccines, totally. And I got an RSV shot, I guess it'll be 3 years ago in January. And I've asked a couple of times, but haven't received a complete answer, I guess, about how long the vaccine lasts. When I asked about 6 months ago, a pharmacist told me that as far as they know, it's still active.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is something where I don't like to give exact answers, because I'll tell you why. For example, the manufacturer only studies, it's sometimes assumed how long your immunity lasts for. So, for example, Shingrix, the new form, they tell you, and I'm sorry that I'm not answering it about RSV just because I haven't gone deep dive into that one.
Sure.
But for Shingrix, for example, the manufacturer only reports up to 4 years after. So in the post-marketing surveillance, when they are looking to see, what they do is they test your antibodies to see how much of those do you have, because sometimes even for people with immune dysfunction, we can do to check immunes for the Hep B, for example, to see how immune they are and then do a booster. So with the Shingrix, the manufacturer is only giving us up to 4 years afterwards that they're guaranteeing those antibody titer. So I will have to look up what it is in terms of RSV. Now, if they're saying it's 100% of whatever it is that they were expecting after 4 years, sometimes they do mathematical models to assume certain things and then say, okay, well, this is lifetime, assuming all these other factors are okay as well. So I think for now, you're good. And if the health authorities change their guidelines, it means that they would have had cases of increased infection from people who have been vaccinated, and therefore they're looking at the data and thinking there is not enough protection from that vaccine, even though we previously recommended it once and you're done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I would look out for health authority recommendations because they do actually they do update them.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a new vaccine too, so I believe
Yeah.
they are waiting, they are looking for answers.
Yeah, yeah. So
Like you say.
I would continue to look out, and my personal feeling is that the Shingrix one might actually get updated as we get people living longer and getting it closer to their early 50s. So there's going to be that gap, and I don't know, we may have to do boosters, but again, that's just a very personal opinion.
Yeah.
Well, this was really great. It was so interesting, really, really fascinating. Um, I guess, are there other mRNA vaccines that are in development right now for other illnesses or?
I think they are working on some DNA vaccines for even for cancers.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but I don't know all of them. And one thing I didn't get to in the slides was why mRNA vaccines are actually amazing. Is because you don't need to do the whole manufacturing bit of putting the part of the virus to grow that one protein in the cell. So you can do it all in a test tube where you just take the mRNA, which is basically a recipe for your own cell to make that protein that then gets presented to your body that says, hey, this is foreign, let's make antibodies. So it cuts so many risky steps and costly as well as time consuming steps, which also may have contributed to how quickly it came about. But I think there's a lot on the horizon, and I actually think it's amazing. And one other thing about mRNA vaccines is that some people think it's going to change your genome. In your own body, mRNA is a recipe book from your own DNA. So like it sends, okay, hey, we want to produce this protein. It sends an mRNA message and then your body makes that protein and then the mRNA degrades. So definitely when we're injecting mRNA, it's also going to degrade after it's being used. Once the recipe is done, it's done. There's no integration. So I don't think it will change anybody's DNA.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thank you so much. This is really great. And yeah, I'm like the other lady, I'm all over vaccines. There's certainly, I think, also like an age, um like I guess those of us who it wasn't questioned, right? Like, our parents knew about polio. They were exposed to
Yes.
polio and measles and all of these other really horrible diseases, and then these miracles of vaccines came about, and of course, like, why, no one would question it because, well, the disease is far
Worse.
worse than something that you'd think, a reaction from the vaccines, and so yeah, I don't know. To me, they're quite miraculous. So
Mhm.
I'm all over them.
And it's one it, it's one of the preventative things that we can do when we're living with a chronic lung condition. So when we think of, we may be living with a progressive lung condition that may reduce lung function over time. We always speak to you all about how really controlling those flare-ups, where you can really have these inflammatory events that can really reduce your lung function. So if you think of vaccines as like, it's one of the preventative tools in our toolbox. We can pull that out and try and reduce our risk, over the year, and really, really do our best to keep up that lung function.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the apple a day.
Yeah. And a lot of times, if your immune system gets overwhelmed trying to fight one virus and you've not been vaccinated, and then you're putting all your eggs in that basket, then you have maybe a secondary infection that might turn out to be bacterial. Then you've got so many things going that your body just can't handle it. So that's why it's sort of like, it's better safe than sorry. Even if you're never going to get exposed, it's still a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Anyone have questions about the side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines? I have one more rabbit hole that I went down. Does anybody want to hear this rabbit?
Sure. Yeah. Well,
So,
side effects are a
so
valid reason that
one
people are
thing that
concerned.
people get very concerned about is young men having heart inflammation or like having heart issues after being vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccine. And there are actually side effects that it is true. You can get some heart inflammation in younger men, and they've seen that, and that's part of the post-marketing surveillance, which I think is really important. And so one recommendation for that is to actually take the Pfizer vaccine because it has a lower amount of it's a lower dose. But why do they think that? One theory, and they're not 100% sure why, and they think it's the inflammation that is caused. And why it's more prevalent in young men is because they have more testosterone, less estrogen, and they think that the estrogen has actually been protective against that effect or that side effect. So, like again, everything has side effects, but when we know how to manage them by taking, say, the lower dose vaccine, then it puts us at an advantage, not a disadvantage, so that we can be confident. And I like the conspiracy theories. Like some patients come in and they're like, well, I don't want this because my doctor just wants me to be on it. And this is what I read online. So what I usually do is actually pull it up. Like, let's go through it. Let's pull up what you read and let's see why it is maybe true or may not be true. So I think that's what I want to leave you with is that, like, side effects exist, but you've got always a risk versus benefit analysis. And there are always ways to mitigate side effects. And what you hear on the internet is great because it makes you want to think and look into it, look further into it. And sometimes pharmacists love to get those questions. So your neighborhood pharmacist will talk to you ad nauseum about this.
Love it. Yeah, I love that deep dive explore together. I think it's great. So, let's look at the information.
Yeah.
Let's address the fears,
Yeah.
address the concerns, and
I
make
mean,
a
those are valid
educated
questions.
decision.
People have fears. I mean, like you
Yeah.
shouldn't have to just be told, those days are gone where your doctor just says to take it and there's so much information out there and you don't want to go home worried that like, did my doctor know this? Did my doctor read this on the news? Did they consider this or that? And sometimes doctors don't have time and they just say, well, this is not true, but don't tell you why.
Yeah, it's true.
So I have one other
Nice.
question then related to that point about side effects and the heart side effects
Yeah.
that can occur in younger men.
Yeah.
So if the thinking is that estrogen is protective, has there been any indication that in postmenopausal women who are not on HRT,
That's a great question.
is
And I
there?
don't know because that
Mm,
is actually just one theory. This is what they are
okay.
assuming is the protective effect for women. So whether that is, that's a great consideration for, whether women would be protected or not, given that if they're not on HRT after menopause, that's a really great question. And again, they're not even 100% sure that is why, but that is one theory that is out there. So we continue to learn and look into it. But if you are postmenopausal, this is my other love, postmenopausal hormones.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, a lot of people would back you up on that.
yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I've got one final slide to share with us just before we say goodbye. And look how perfect our timing is. So yeah, if you enjoyed this meeting and you're looking for others, we do these monthly. The next one is coming up in January 2026 already. 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of every month, second Wednesday of every month. And we have Lisa Butcher, who is a respiratory therapist and a registered clinical counselor. And we're going to be talking about depression and mental health with respiratory conditions. So please do join us. Stay out. Keep your eyes out for that one coming up as well. So thank you so much, Sura. You took this conversation down wonderful little paths. I absolutely love where you
Yes.
twisted and turned. So thank you, everybody, and a big thank you again to the BC Lung Foundation for funding these wonderful sessions. And please do reach out to us through our Poplar community. You can find us at poplarpulmonary.com if you're
And
looking.
in the community, we'll let you know when this video is posted, when it's up and ready to view for those who may have missed it.